Hello, 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 everyone. Dr. David checking in here. Let's just make sure that the brand new studio has got all the good stuff going for it so that I can give you guys the best lessons possible. Welcome to Weapons of Social Seduction. I'm your host, Dr. David Snyder. I'll be teaching you some of the nastiest, evilest, most powerful ways that social predators use to kind of get one up on you and how you can detect them before they get a chance to do it and even turn the tables on them. So before we get into the content of tonight's show, first of all, if you see me looking around, it's because I'm in a brand new studio, and this is the first webinar I've done with the new equipment. So I'm still trying to find everything. But just as an aside, let's check in really quick. Tell me where I see a lot of people checking in. How many of you are first timers here in Planet David? Go ahead, raise your hand and uh, tell me where you're checking in from. This is your first time and what it is you most want to take away from tonight's training. Go ahead and type that in the chat, right? For those of you who are just kind of passing by, there's Barbara from Italy's checking in and Jody from Carmel. And then we have Liliana over in Charlotte and Nagali or Gali in Dallas. Let's see here. We got I don't want to mispronounce her name. Is it Nicotali coming in from I think it's Italy, and then we have Hypno Erie from Pennsylvania. Great. So type in the chat for me. What is it you want to take away? You know, if you came away, spot a con artist in 3 seconds. Well, I'm still working on that. But some people might say, well, just look at Dr. David Snyder. He's a con artist, right? Of course, if you're on YouTube and you're a public figure, people are going to talk all kinds of shit. So at the end of the day, I don't ask you to believe anything I'm going to teach you. What I ask you to do is take the information and test it, experience it. If it works for you, if it moves the needle in your life forward, then keep it. If it doesn't, don't. My webinars are not your. Oh, you know what I got to do here? I actually have to turn the record button on would be helpful, wouldn't it? All right. So those of you on live streaming from YouTube, you're going to have the full unexpurgated vision. Those of you who are going to get the replay for this, you're going to see me jumping in at the last minute with weird things. So let's do a couple of administrative details. I'll probably edit this out just to make it easier because I know YouTube doesn't like administravia at the beginning of a webinar. This is a class. Yes, there's an offer connected to it. There's an offer connected to everything we do because we believe that if we don't show you how to get access to everything, we're not serving you. But tonight's class is all about actionable material you can take out into the world today. Things that you can start putting into practice right away. I've been an influence teacher for a very long time, and it's always been kind of a double-edged sword for me because when people know you know about influence and you know about persuasion, they automatically assume you're always using it. And they will come up with brilliant ways of finding stuff, or discovering you doing stuff you've never done. Right. So spotting a con artist in 3 seconds there's actually a few little keys. I don't know if we can do it in 3 seconds, but you can do it in a fairly short amount of time if you follow a few basic rules. And that's one of the things I want to kind of get out of the way. We talk about lie detection. We talk about predatory persuasion, or manipulation is probably a better word. Manipulation means different things to different people, and it's always based on the interpretation of the person on the receiving end of it, right? So where I draw the line with manipulation is, are we deceiving or coercing somebody in some way? Are we misrepresenting what we have to offer, what we can do, what we will do, what they will get? If we're misrepresenting ourselves or our content in any way, that to me is manipulation, right? There are contexts and environments where those kinds of tactics and techniques are fundamentally necessary. For example, interrogation. If you ever watch things like, Law and Order or The Closer, you'll see these interrogators lying and misleading and criminals all the time, right? But for the vast majority of us, that is not the kind of persuasion that we need, nor that we want. We want to move through the world making people do what we want them to do because they want to, and feel ridiculously good about us as a byproduct of doing that. That is the philosophy that we have always embraced in all of our technologies. However, we do recognize that there are certain populations of people, certain situations where that is not possible. There are people who will take these techniques and will use them in an unscrupulous way to manipulate or deceive you, right? So let's find out if this is the content for you. So if you can answer yes to any of the following questions, type that's yes, that's me in the chat. A, if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling emotionally exhausted or drained, maybe they sucked your energy, they hit you in an emotional sweet spot, and it just completely deflated you or busted your state. If that's ever happened to you, type yes in the chat. If you found yourself agreeing to something you didn't actually want without knowing why, type that in the chat. This is a training you're going to be really glad you found. Right on. If you found yourself defending somebody else's toxic behavior, standing up for somebody who did something bad, but you stood up for them anyway, right? Maybe even paid the price for that later on. Type yes in the chat. If you felt someone was too charming only to later realize you were being manipulated in the worst of ways, go ahead and type that in the chat. If you've ever felt cornered in a sales call or a pitch and you couldn't say no, type it in the chat. Ever left a negotiation feeling like you gave too much away? Type it in the chat. Work with a client or colleague who consistently left you doubting yourself. You know what to do, right? If you've ever sensed you're being emotionally managed, felt dependent on a coach, teacher, or mentor for your self-worth, realized you were trapped in someone else's narrative without seeing it first. If you answered yes to 3 or more of any of these questions, this is probably a good place for you to spend the next couple hours. We're going to go through some really powerful technology. In the emails that we sent out, we talked about this. We're going to talk about the psychology of narcissists, sociopaths, Machiavellians, what is commonly referred to as a dark triad, so to speak, which is basically narcissism, sociopathy, and Machiavellianism, right? Or psychopathy, right? Machiavellians are kind of an interesting category of their own. Does everybody know what I mean when I say a Machiavellian? Type that in the chat if you know what I'm talking about. There's William from Northern Ireland. Okay, good. There's Neva. Hey. All right. Um, so let's talk about the differences social predators define. Okay. So would you guys prefer that I share my PowerPoint or my screens, or do you just like, is it okay for me to just talk to you like this? I don't like PowerPoints myself. Whenever I see a PowerPoint on a screen, I just shut off. Do you tell me what you want? Christy says, so used and abused by, yes, we've all been on the receiving end of predatory influence. The problem is that just like so many other things, predatory persuasion is a very, very, very subjective phenomenon. Okay, so let me see if I can put on a good show for you guys here. Um, we'll share this. I don't like PowerPoints as a rule, but if this helps you, then I'm happy to do it. Okay. Can you see that? Can you see the PowerPoint? Hold on a second. Let me make that bigger for you. That's still not good. That's not working out the way I planned it to. Hold on a second, guys. That should be way bigger. This is what happens when you get a brand new monitor and you don't know how to use it. All right, well, let's just make this big and see what happens. I won't spend a lot of time here. Narcissists, you know what? I'm just going to share my screen because splitting the screen is not working. Okay, is that better? Yes, no? Can't see you guys. Okay, that's not working. Where is my share screen? See, I was all set to go. Let's try this again. All right. There, that should work. Social predators define. Okay. We find people emotionally attractive when they make us feel loved, respected, valued, admired, accepted, attractive, etc. This is an important piece. Even though we're going to talk about predatory psychology, it's important to understand why do we fall victim to these kinds of people? And this is one of the biggest reasons. We have this pesky little thing called needs, right? And anybody who can make us feel good about ourselves is automatically attractive to us. If you want to read more about how this works, there's a book you might want to pick up. It's called The Like Switch by Jack Schafer. Jack Schafer is a former FBI counterintelligence specialist, and he's actually quite brilliant. But he's probably summed it up better than anybody else that I've seen in all the books. We instinctively like people who make us like ourselves, right? Who fill a need for validation inside of us. And honestly, that's something that all human, whether we're whether we're one of the good guys, the good Jedi out there, trying to, go move through the world and have everybody have a win-win, or whether we're talking about the worst types of predators out there who are never the evil looking ones, by the way. The worst kinds of predators are the ones that look like Sir Galahad or the knight in shining armor, or the Sir Lancelots of the world. The book Liliana is called The Like Switch by Jack Schafer. So let's go into the four basic types of predatory psychology that we're going to deal with. And the first one is the classic narcissist, right? Narcissists, again, this is going to sound weird because of the content of tonight's webinar, but narcissists get a bad rap. We automatically think that if somebody's narcissistic, that they're a bad person. And the truth is that they're not always bad people. They're just really, really, really selfish. And so they often make decisions from that selfishness that would not be in other people's best interest. But the interesting thing about narcissists is that they're often quite likable, and people like narcissists even when they know their person's a narcissist, right? Um, but narcissism also exists on a spectrum. So you have the most toxic types of narcissists, who are what we call grandiose narcissists, covert or otherwise. And then you have people all the way down to the other end of the spectrum where they're just a little selfish or they're self-centered, which is the average human being. The average human being is somewhere down in this little end of the spectrum. Every human being on the planet is selfish. Your autonomic nervous system is built on this idea of selfishness. But that selfishness evolves as we move through the centuries, from the time we crawl out of the ocean and we swing in trees to the time where we're sitting here on the internet talking. Our selfishness has evolved, and how we look upon survival of the self differently. It's become sublimated. Okay. So when we look at narcissists, we don't necessarily want to automatically assume they're evil, but we do have to understand. And by the way, as an aside, narcissists are some of the easiest people to manipulate on the planet, or to persuade. They really are, because you know what their priorities are, right? And if you understand what I teach you guys in Killer Influence and NLP Ultra, to speak to a person's needs, speak to a person's values, they will basically do whatever you want them to do if you frame it right. And you won't have to lie or cheat or steal or deceive them. You just have to speak just like any other human, speak to their needs. The predatory part happens when we start tapping into a person's needs to get them to do things that are not in their best interests, that are supposedly in exchange for things we can't deliver, right? That is where we have to draw the line, right? It is never necessary, outside of law enforcement context or something along those lines, to lie, cheat, steal, to influence somebody, right? You don't have to do it. It's just you just don't have to do it, right? Let's talk about sociopathy for a minute. Sociopathy, now we're getting a little bit more aggressive. Sociopaths, or antisocial personality disorder, is characterized by not necessarily an ignorance of the rules, but a lack of concern for the rules. These people don't care. A lot of times they don't have the same emotional experience as the rest of it. They often very good at mimicking emotions, but not actually feeling them. Now, some sociopaths are what I call conditional sociopaths. They can feel emotions and stuff like that towards certain people in certain contexts, but by and large, they're not troubled by what we would consider moral values or things of that nature. And there's about in the book Snakes in Suits, I believe it was quoted that there was about 4% of the population is considered sociopathic, right? A lot of these people tend to migrate towards positions of power, positions of influence. So you'll see a lot of them obviously migrating into government. You'll see them migrating into law enforcement. You'll see obviously there's a criminal side to this. You'll see them migrating into medicine, believe it or not, right? Um, Leadership positions, as a rule, sociopaths or people with strong sociopathic tendencies tend to actually have a little bit of an advantage. We might not consider it an advantage, but they're not as bothered by the emotional content of a situation as somebody who's more heart-centered like you or me, right? So they will make decisions that people with bigger hearts might not necessarily want to make. But sociopathy is characterized by, if not an antagonism, a lack of regard for the rules of society. Okay, and I want to kind of give you a little bit of I want to contrast at this level of when we talk about sociopaths, primarily because you have what I call intelligent sociopaths, and then you have not so intelligent sociopath, and you have what we call character disturbed people. And two great books to really dive into this psychology, if you haven't gotten our reading list, would be In Sheep's Clothing and Character Disturbance by George K. Simons. He goes, and a lot of the material for this webinar was actually derived from Dr. Simons's work. I found his work to be extremely useful and refreshing on a applications level because he doesn't take the white light, holier than thou, oh, they're just damaged little snowflakes kind of an attitude towards these character disturbed individuals. He takes a rather tough love kind of a approach. And what I mean by that is people who demonstrate character disturbance, which is usually some form of antisocial personality disorder. Like I said before, a lot of them just don't have any regard for the rules and the mores of society, but a smaller subsection actually hate those rules and they think they apply to everybody but them, and they're actively fighting against it. These are the career criminals and things of that nature, predators, things of that nature. So remember that even within the context or the subcategory of sociopathy, you have different types, right? The ones I really care about are that worry me are the ones who are actively looking to just take from people, right? As opposed to the just the selfish. Now, your values and um, your priorities may vary, right? And I'm here to help you with that in any way I can. Machiavellians, Machiavellians are interesting. They may or may not be sociopathic. But the thing that characterizes Machiavellians is they are extremely good actors. They are often extroverted, insincere, interpersonally duplicitous. In other words, they lie like a rug. They have no problem breaking social boundaries, misrepresenting, uh, sub, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Going to acts of coercion and blackmail and extortion to get what they want. A lot of Machiavellians out there. They're harder to catch because they're usually smarter. One of the things about sociopaths, psychopaths too, but especially people high on the antisocial personality disorder spectrum, they're often quite sensation seeking. And they're often demonstrated by a lack of impulse control. So you'll often see people with these kinds of tendencies leading they're very nomadic. They tend to look for high adrenaline, high risk activities. They just have that, they need a higher, stronger level of stimulation. And this is going to be important later on when we start looking at how do we profile these people. One of the things that one of the folks in the chat asked was, how do I spot a con man in less than 3 seconds or less? Well, you can't spot them in 3 seconds or less because it takes you longer to do an internet search on them than 3 seconds. We're getting better, but the way that you profile a lot of these people before you interact with them. And again, I call this what I call this what I call the pre-engagement stage. If you're going to have a meeting with somebody, like a business meeting or a date or a negotiation, you really owe it to yourself to do as much research on that person as you can to create a profile of them so that you can war game out in your own mind and your heart how they're likely to respond, what tactics they're likely to use with you, right? So many years ago, I was contracted by one of the big four accounting firms to design an entire course on nonverbal influence. And I divided the entire program up into what I call pre-encounter phase, the 7 second window, and then interactive phase. Pre-encounter phase is where all of your really powerful profiling tools can be brought to bear. You can do face reading passively. You can do background checks. You can do social media. You can do the flag system, which I'm going to introduce to you very shortly. Um, you can do all kinds of background stuff that allows you to create a profile in your mind of this person so that when you engage, you already have a working map of that person's persona and their behaviors. Now, most people won't do that. The only time people actually do something even close to that is when they're about to go on a date, and it's usually the woman who does it because I want to Google this motherfucker before I find out what I'm getting myself into, which is good. They just don't go far enough. Okay. Um, all right. So Machiavellians are usually quite duplicitous. They may or may not be sociopathic. They do often have a very low regard for the well-being of others unless it directly serves them. Now, one of the ways that you know you can, if you can trust a Machiavellian or not, if you can actually identify them as such, is do their interests and yours align? If your interests and theirs align, they're fairly trustworthy. But if you can detect any moment where there's a split between what you want and need in your life or in your business or in your project and theirs, that's where you'll have the problem. These people will not hesitate to deviate without a second thought. Okay. Any questions about Machiavellians before I move on to psychopaths, which I know is something you all want to talk about? What would now be a good time? Amna says one has to keep looking over your shoulders. Well, the truth is we should be looking over our shoulders all the time. It shouldn't be that way. It really shouldn't. But I'm not somebody, I gave up my idealism a long time ago. Um, I realized a long time ago that idealism is the perfect hunting ground for a sociopath, a psychopath, or a narcissist. So I'm very pragmatic in my approaches, right? Um, Many bosses in the workplace. Yes, anybody who is a social climber is going to have a strong, uh, if not sociopathic and narcissistic, at least a strong Machiavellian bent to them, right? It just goes to show. Lottie says, God, it's so hard to have to fight. Just sacking it up seems like, well, yeah. And that's actually one of the reasons I teach this material. You know, there was I can't remember who said it. I will probably mangle the quote, but it was said by a very famous person one time that all that's necessary for evil to triumph is that good people do nothing, right? Um, we have as much right to be in this world as the predators do. And if we don't stand up for ourselves and we don't stand up for our rights, then we deserve to have them taken away, right? And that's just I can take a hard approach to that. It shouldn't be I shouldn't have to think that way, but it's just kind of my approach. Any other questions about narcissist, sociopathy, or Machiavellians before I get into the psychopaths? Is this helpful? Is this useful? This means yes. This means no. Type it in the chat. Amna says, do such people see themselves as no? I remember seeing every criminal thinks they're a hero. In fact, one of the things that we're going to be talking about today are defense mechanisms. In other words, distortions in thinking that people who exhibit these kinds of tendencies actually exhibit. Okay, we're going to talk about the behavioral characteristics, but I want to talk a little bit more about how they think or what kinds of thinking they resort to, so that when you're interacting with these people and you pick or you can detect some of these things. There's a lot of them. I'm going to be upfront with you. There's a lot. There's probably, if this is the scope of everything there is to learn about these kinds of people and what they do, I've got time for this much. So I promise you this. I will take you as far down this sociopathic rabbit hole as I can in the time that we have. I will teach you as much as I can give you. I will try to give you as many usable techniques that you can adapt, and I will point you in the direction of where to go to get access to the entire system I put together. Would that be fair? If you think that's fair, type it in the chat. So Robert is asking, do I make any distinction regarding closet narcissists? Well, first of all, every single one of us is a narcissist. Okay? Whether we realize it or not, we our spirit and our energy and our mind operates through a nervous system that is inherently selfish. Okay? The question becomes, what degree are we on that spectrum? Right? And to the degree that we're on the spectrum is the degree that we care less and less about. Well, narcissists always care what other people think of them. That's one of the big misnomers. Is like narcissists are all about them. So they want to look good. They want to be the hero. They want to, nothing can ever be their fault. Right? That's a basic run-of-the-mill narcissistic idea. It's extreme narcissist. But to go into different types of narcissists, you have what I would consider to be over grandiose or overt narcissists, and then I have what we call covert narcissists. Now, interesting clinically, what I found, because I've been in clinical practice for over almost 25, 26 years now, when I've worked with a lot of covert narcissists. And one of the interesting things about covert narcissism is that it almost always is secondary to having a parent who was a grandiose narcissist. It's an interesting inversion of the narcissistic pattern. Someone who's grandiose is always the hero. Everybody's always out, it's everybody else's problem. Everything's about me. The covert narcissist, everything's about me too, but they're always the victim. There's always a conspiracy. There's always people are aligning, or people just don't like me, or they're targeting me. So I get a lot of that clinically. I don't see a lot of grandiose narcissists coming through my clinic. Why? I don't think they have a problem. They don't think they have a problem, right? But a lot of times when someone is exhibiting covert narcissistic patterns, it's almost always the direct result of having narcissistic parents. Okay. So let's see here. What about borderline personality as described in the book? Borderline is a whole different animal. Yes, they have narcissistic tendencies as well, but they have a strong histrionic bent too. Uh, in fact, we actually have facial features now in my teachings with Lillian Bridges that can really help you kind of identify people who are on the borderline spectrum. Borderline people have a hair trigger, and they're more of a, again, these are not the most accurate psychological descriptions, but they're more of a split personality. Like you're either the Messiah or Meshuggah. You're either the devil or Jesus, depending on what day you catch them on, or whether you're doing what they want you to do or not. Now, when we start looking at the defense mechanisms that all of these particular personality types exhibit, you'll see a lot of very similar patterns that you would see a borderline person using when they're on the other side. Okay. Um, there's a lot of overlap, but I don't know that I would consider, I haven't read the book, by the way, Walking on Eggshells. I wouldn't consider them to be necessarily predatory, but they certainly can go that way if their switch gets flipped. That's more of a psychopathy than it is anything else. So we could tentatively, gently, lovingly place them in the psychopathy category, right? Barbara's asking, I see how narcissists are manipulated, but I would love to deal with them without non-needed manipulation cause or in my because they're in my family. All right. Well, here's the thing. You don't have to manipulate them, but you do have to manage them. Some people might look at techniques used for managing difficult personalities as a form of manipulation, right? It really has to, again, the use of these techniques, the use of these tactics and principles is such a it's they can be good or evil depending on what side of the fence you're on and what you're using them for. The tools themselves are inherently neutral. In fact, one of the more disheartening things about when you look at predatory psychology is they're using a lot of the same tools that I would teach you guys to get a better life. They're just using them to take better lives away from other people. I don't condone that. I don't think it's necessary. I've devoted my life to teaching folks like you how to use these techniques to make everybody's life better. And I'm going to keep doing that to the day I die, right? God willing, and the creek don't rise. So we will teach you how to be safer from them. I don't think we can, unless we lock ourselves in a room and you never interact with another human being, there's no such thing as being totally safe from these people. Okay. There are things you can do, however, to take yourself off the menu. So psychopathy, and we just talked about borderlines. Psychopathy, there are 9 signs of psychopathy. One is a sadistic nature, right? They motivate through fear rather than respect. They intend to destroy rather than correct. They are glib and constantly turn on superficial charm. Think of the Ted Bundys of the world. Every single serial killer who was not a spree killer that I know of had some degree of charm and an ability to to become very endearing to people. People would trust them. People would believe in them. And so this is a natural personality trait that they tend to exhibit. They often have grandiose. This is again, you will see grandiose narcissism in psychopaths. They believe that the world centers around them. The rules don't apply to anybody. The rules don't apply to them. They don't see people as people. They see people as objects in their universe to be manipulated and utilized. They're pathologically deceptive, both to themselves and other people many times, right? They often live parasitic lifestyles. So you're going to see in the psychopath similar traits with sociopathy. In fact, almost all psychopaths are sociopaths, right? Um, they're cunning and manipulative. They had early behavioral problems. They often show no remorse or guilt about what they often live in a very, very different world. When I was teaching, when I was teaching my face reading classes, there's a particular facial eye trait that you see in a lot of people who are going through some form of um, psychological break, or they've become delusional or have been indoctrinated into some form of alternate reality, and it's called cutting pupils. And cutting pupils is where the eyes it's like this. The upper lid cuts across most of the iris and pupil. And when you see this in people, you're looking at somebody who's living in a different world with different rules, and your world doesn't matter to them. You'll see this a lot of times in serial killers. You'll see this a lot of times in people on some form of trip. You see it a lot. It's not necessarily droopy lids, but they're very the eyes themselves are very shaded. Like, um, I don't know if I don't know if I maybe if I have time in part 3 of the webinar, I'll see if I can find a graphic for you for cutting pupils. Um, it's very easy to spot. What you'll see most often though in people who are kind of on the edge is what we call the three-sided whites. In other words, the 3 sides of the eye, the inner part, the bottom part, and the other side. You'll see the whites on all 3 sides of that. Okay. Those are people who are going through some kind of adrenal fatigue, which means they're almost always in some form of altered state. Nathan Mayer is asking, does all this relate to toxic masculinity or femininity? Absolutely not. No, this has nothing to do with gender at all. Okay. Um, it's important to really understand that. I'm not talking, you know, the sad truth is most sociopaths are male. Most psychopaths are male, but there is a fair share of females as well. So we're talking about the behaviors that all of these characters, whether regardless of gender, are are going to exhibit. Okay. Okay. Batsabi says, I love the face reading course. Yeah, face reading. And we actually have master level courses now, which we may offer in the future for people who've been through face reading 1 and 2 and 3. We can talk about that a little bit later. Okay, let me just get out of my eraser here. All right. Sociopathy, you'll often see a lack of empathy. They'll have a very cold nature, often narcissistic, almost always charming. One of the interesting things, with the exception of some forms of psychopathy, um, all of these particular subgroups of predatory predatory persuasion are very charming and glib. They have a gift of gab. Can you see my type notes? Of course. I thought you wanted to see me. Okay, here we go. So they have a predatory nature. Sociopaths are unable to fully understand the emotions of others and are highly adept at mimicking them. And this is, again, this is what screws us up. These people tend to be extremely good observers of human behavior, and they spend a lot of time mimicking that behavior. They may not feel it, but they can pretend it. They can, okay? Um, I think I've talked about a lot of these. They often engage in risky behaviors. They're sensation seeking, so they seek behaviors. The high alcohol consumption, drug use, gambling, things of that nature. They're often quite unlawful. They have impulsive behavior, irresponsible. They're often deceitful. I've covered a lot of this already in my earlier part of the lecture, so I'm just kind of reviewing these. Okay, let's move on to something a little bit more useful. Let's talk about how narcissists and sociopaths actually choose their victims. Would this be useful? What do you think? Yeah. All right. So let's talk about target selection. Now, one of the things we need to understand is that every single one of these character types is looking for somebody who has emotional baggage. They're looking for somebody who has needs that are not being met. Okay. They're looking, I like call it people with holes in their souls, right? Because when we have these empty spaces inside of us, we go desperately looking for somebody to fill them. So this list is far from exhaustive, but this is something that'll give you a bit of an idea as to what these people are actually kind of looking for, what kind of things, if they're part of your lifestyle, might actually put you on the hit list, right? And remember, these are vulnerabilities. And in our world, vulnerability equals suggestibility. Okay. So SSRI prescriptions. If you've been put on any kind of antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication, this is gonna, the higher their levels of anxiety, um, I'm not saying, do they look for physical signs of emotional bad or it's an intuitive? The answer is there are kinesthetic or kinesic uh, indicators that they look for. There are behavioral and environmental things that they're looking for, as well as social things that they're looking for. And as I go through this list of things, the more you check off, the more you're on the menu. The less you can check off, or the less you check things off, the less you're on the menu, so to speak. So if a person's had a recent death in the family, this person's extremely vulnerable. History of mental illness, recent divorce or end of relationship. Why? Because any loss triggers a disruption in a person's identity, a disruption in a person's values and needs, right? It's your identity and your values that determine what the rules of behavior are for you, what's right and proper and what is not. Anything that you've identified with that you lose creates a massive interruption in your identity states, which can be, and you go desperately looking for a way to get that stability back. It's very common when somebody loses a job, gets fired, gets downsized, laid off, whatever, for their primary relationship to dissolve or disintegrate as well. The inverse is also true. When somebody's primary relationship is taken away, destroyed, goes away, whatever, very often all the satellite things in their life begin to suffer as well. Why? Because the context anchors and the emotional support that kept that particular person's identity in place are no longer there. Everything is very malleable. If you ever get, and I pray that this never happens to any of you, but if you ever wind up in a situation where a cult is trying to indoctrinate you, one of the very first things they're going to do is to isolate you from everything around you that's familiar. Your social circle, your immediate family, maybe even your spouse, the places you go for fun, right? They will take you to places where a certain set of rules are being enforced and rewarded that are as far away from what's normal for you as possible. They will love bomb you when you do what they want. They will chastise you or punish you or criticize you when you don't until you become needy. They're breaking down the identity structures that keep you you so they can write new rules to your operating system. That's how all cults work, whether directly or indirectly. Whether you're going, whether you're talking about the worst case of MK Ultra stuff back in the 60s and 70s and 50s and whenever it was, all the way up to modern micro cults of today. All of them are engaging to some degree in this level of identity reconstruction, right? This list that I'm sharing with you is a small list of some of the things that can make their jobs easier and what they look for when they're seeking a victim. There's a lot of smart people who get sucked into cults. Why? Because they've got emotional holes that they need to fill, right? Okay. Yeah. Betsabe says the first thing my ex-narc did was isolate me from my family. Yes, it's a very common tactic. Very common, right? So if you've had any recent financial troubles, financial problems, recent loss of credit, history of seeking help from suicide hotlines, history of very few close friends. If you're looking detachment or estrangement from the family, desire for notoriety. This is often one of the ones that people don't get. People want to feel special. People want attention, right? Sometimes people get that by being accepted. Sometimes people get that by shocking everybody else. It's a desire for attention, a desire for notoriety. And if they find a crowd that will feed that need, they'll go after it. They will continue to feed from that trough, right? They might have a strong desire for self-expression, a history of abuse physically or sexually. And there are facial indicators where we can start to see where that might be true. Heightened disconnection from friends and family at work or school. Okay. How many have you, just by without telling me which ones you checked off, how many checked off at least two or three? Okay. All right. Again, if any of this is striking home, these are the things we got to clean up. These are the things that these are the holes we want to plug and fill with something better. Okay. Let's look at some others. Now, one of the other things you understand is that these predators play a numbers game. They have no skin in the game with regards to who bites on their lure, right? Um, it's again, let me jump out of this really quick. So when you start working or when you're targeted by a predator, there's an algorithm, a formula that all of them follow. Okay. First of all, if you're selected by one of these people, it's because you fit a profile. You understand? Laura says, I was in an AA cult. Wow. And that doesn't surprise me, right? Cults they tend to piggyback or parasite along established institutions who give help to people who need it, right? How many people have ever seen the movie Fight Club? Type in if you've seen the movie Fight Club, right? Again, here was a mentally deranged person right? And what was he doing? He was surfing the support groups, right? Well, he had to get that idea from somewhere. A lot of predators, and if you read the book Red Flags by Wendy Patrick, she'll talk about um, con artists, geriatric, that go after older retired folks, people living in retirement centers and seniors communities. And this is I'm very sensitive to this because my grandfather was a victim of one of these people, right? Um, which is one of the reasons why I teach this kind of stuff because that person destroyed my grandfather, just completely destroyed him, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I was too far away, and nobody would listen to me anyway. I have managed to stop some other people's lives from getting destroyed since then because I know the profile, and I managed to stop someone from losing millions of dollars from their father's estate because of one of these people. So I'm grateful for having taken the time to have learned this. But one of the things that you need to understand is that the predators spend a huge amount of time, the bad guys spend a huge amount of time looking like the good guys. Okay. So if you are targeted by somebody from one of these predatory categories, it's because you fit a profile, which brings us to the first step in the predator algorithm. The first step is called proactivity. Proactivity. When a person when these predators operate, they use a five-step formula. The first one is proactivity, where they profile the person or the type of person that they want, who is going to be their ideal target, their ideal victim. Okay. And they have certain physiological characteristics that they're looking for. They have certain psycho-emotional characteristics. I gave you a short list of 20 other things they might be looking for. There will be body language cues. There will be social cues that they're going to look for. And then once they have that profile of who their perfect victim is, they're going to spend an inordinate amount of time creating an avatar that represents the most appealing type of person to that profile. Okay. Someone they can identify with, someone that has tremendous emotional appeal, someone that has credibility, someone that has validation or approval seeking, I think is the term. But it's a five-stage formula, and it's a massively powerful formula because what it does is it creates an imbalanced power dynamic where the person who is the target of this particular formula becomes progressively more emotionally dependent on the victim, on the predator. Okay. I call it the predator protocol just because it's unfairly powerful, but everything starts with a profile. Who am I looking at? What are their needs? What are their wants? What are their behaviors? What are their rules? Once I know what those are, now I can engineer a version of myself to fit that model. Okay. Questions on that? Okay. So we got the victimology down. That's a great question. Do they create these profiles consciously? Yes and no. Certain types of predators know when somebody's weak or vulnerable. Other types start with a basic idea and then they refine it through technique, through understanding of language, and actually sometimes they're groomed by other predators. They're actually trained and taught by other predators. So I would say it's a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B for sure. Um, Interesting thing about people who are naturally predatory is they have a much higher perception of people's behaviors than the average human, right? And so I got to think for a moment when I say do they create these profiles consciously, because a lot of times it isn't conscious. Um, but some people will take what they can do unconsciously and then apply science to it to make it even uh, more better, I guess is a good way to say it. My language is not exactly up to snuff today. Barbara's asking, I had this also in my family in different ways. Terrible that I couldn't help my father and my grandmother. Now me, I need to stay in balance, having in my family still present. Okay. And as I'm just saying, I learned how to show controlled vulnerability, especially around such. Yes, you have to be very, very aware that these people don't care about boundaries. And one of the ways that they figure out really, really quickly who they can go after is they will press your boundaries to see what you do. And if you immediately push back and you hold your ground and you don't let them go, they'll move on to something else. But if you give them a pass in any way, shape, or form, they'll take that as a sign of weakness and they'll do it again. Okay. Um, Let me see if I can find. So we talked about victimology. Let's talk about their thinking patterns. And when I teach you these thinking patterns, I don't want you to freak out, um, because you will find that a lot of us have the same thinking patterns. The difference will be the frequency and rapidity in which we engage in them. Okay. So let me go ahead and share screen. So So the first thing that people with these distorted thinking processes are going to do is cognitive errors. So these people often engage in egocentric thinking everything is about me, others' needs are irrelevant. They're very possessive, heartless, and objectifying. They see people as possessions or tools, not equals with rights. They usually engage in extreme thinking. There's no compromise, black or white. They're often inattentive or selective attention. In other words, they tune out what doesn't suit them. They hear what they want to hear. We've all had people like this. We've all been these people, right? The difference is the frequency and rapidity with which they do it. Okay. They're deceptive and they're often quite self-deceptive, right? We have someone running the government who might be qualified that way, right? They're impulsive thinkers, egomaniacal and prideful, hedonistic thinking, right? They prioritize pleasure and avoid discomfort, unreasonable, demanding thinking, external hard luck, circumstantial thinking. They blame outside forces. We call this an externalized locus of control. You'll see this very, very strongly in extreme narcissistic, sociopathic, and psychopathic tendencies. You'll see this in the borderlines of the world. When they're on fire, they did what they did because of something outside of themselves. It never is their choice. If you ask them if they're sorry, they'll say they're sorry, but what they're saying is they're sorry they got caught. They're not sorry for what they did. It's a different end game, right? Um, End game or opportunistic thinking. Again, these people they're very, very sensation seeking. They have usually some kind of compromised impulse control. They're combative and defiant, and they're often shameless and guilty. This is the one I think we need to really pay attention to. The shameless and guilty thinking is something that I see happen a lot in regular day-to-day social interactions. What happens many times is these people will ask for something and they'll keep asking because they figure if I got something once, I get it again. They'll keep asking well beyond what most of us who are normally socialized would consider to be acceptable. The old expression, yeah, you give them an arm, they take a leg, right? These people will take the arm, the leg, the right leg, the left leg, the torso, the other arm. They'll just keep asking, right? And they'll often not reciprocate. So one of the things that we can do very many, many times when we want to profile a person's a level of social acuity or social conditioning is we can give them something up front to induce reciprocity in them and see if they actually reciprocate. This is something that I've been doing for a very, 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 very long time. And anybody who teaches negotiation will say, never give first. I have found from a profiler's perspective that it's tremendously useful to give somebody something small up front to see what they do with it. So you can profile what their future behavior is going to be like, because this is the big piece. We're about to get into um, pattern recognition and profiling. Behavior leaves clues, right? The problem that you're going to have with the information I'm sharing with you today beyond the webinar is you're not going to want to do anything with it. Right now, I'm giving you all kinds of information. I'm feeding your head. Okay. And I love you and I want to give you the best I can. But here's the basic truth. Most of you are here for entertainment. True, not true. You're here to be entertained by Dr. David, to learn something cool, right? Jody says, nope. Okay, well, I'm going to remember you said that. In order to use this information, you actually have to use the information, which means you must become proactive yourself. If you want to defeat the predator, just paying attention? If you want to defeat the predator, you must understand the predator and you must learn their tools. Nobody likes to hear that. You must learn their tools and you must use the tools against the bad guys, because that is the secret. Because if the way you've been fighting has worked up to this point, you probably wouldn't be on the webinar. Now, I'm not saying you need to become a bad person. Quite the opposite. You need to be someone who can deal at the same level of technique as that's what's being thrown at you. You must understand it. You must speak the language of the weapons, and you must be willing to use those weapons. And by and large, the thing I see more and more than anything else is people hoard knowledge and then don't do anything with it. So I'm going to ask you guys right up front, if I were to give you a methodology to train and practice that would give you a huge advantage over the bad guys of the world, would you actually use it? Would you actually use it? No bullshit. All right. All right. Then if you'll give me just a few minutes, I'd like to share something with you that I put together. When I'm done sharing the system then the offer that I put together for you, I want to circle back and I want to go over defense mechanisms that you're like, oop, my thing just zoomed in and I don't know why. Okay, well, again, if wanting to hurt them back is natural, right? Let me see if I can make this shrink. There we go. I figured it out. All right. So with your permission, I'd like to share with you a system I put together, a special program that will give you all the tools. It will have everything I've shared with you today and a whole lot more, plus actionable things you can do. When we're done with that piece, I want to circle back. I want to finish with defense mechanisms. I want to teach you a couple of reframe tactics. I want to maybe, and we'll do a Q&A on, and we'll troubleshoot any situations that you might be dealing with right now that we can help you with. Sound fair? Cool. So with your permission, I'd like to teach you about our special Weapons of Social Seduction, Defense Against the Dark Arts of Persuasion and Manipulation home study course. This is a program that's going to start with helping you not only make more money, but to save you money, to protect your money. It's not going to just help you close more deals. It's going to make sure that you don't get taken over a deal that seems too good to be true. Okay. It's not just going to get you more dates. It's going to make sure that the dates that you go on have a higher probability of being successful and safer for you. It's going to help you help more people by helping yourself first, and how to teach your loved ones and the people you care about how to stay off the menu of these narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths that we've been talking about. You're going to feel more confident because you're going to see the world through a different set of eyes. You're going to hear the world through a different set of ears. When people approach you and they begin to behave, they're going to be literally like holding up a bulletin board saying, "This is who I really am. Beware." Or, "This is who I really am. I'm the one you've been waiting for." You're going to have that level of x-ray vision into people's behaviors, and you'll be able to determine with a high degree of certainty exactly who that person is and what they're how they're more likely to behave in your life. right? So you're going to become way more powerful. You're going to win the game of life a whole lot more. And by the way, the game of life actually works better if you actually treat it like it's a game, right? How many of you would like to be up to 30% better at everything? Be playful. Gamify your entire life. Your brain will learn faster. You will be more confident. You will be more persuasive. You'll be more charismatic, and everybody will be more compliant around you. As a byproduct of all the training, not only will you become a master at profiling and understanding people and protecting yourself, you'll automatically be more charming, charismatic, and irresistible as a byproduct of this training. Okay. So here's what I put together. This offer is good until July 7th, 2026 at 11:59 p.m. It's going to start with the Secrets of Human Influence, aka the Killer Influence program. It's a 17 video home study course along with a manual. First manual is going to teach you to think like a master influencer. So the first thing we have to do when we want to victim proof you against the predators of the world, we need to teach you to be a master of influence, a master of persuasion. We need you to understand how persuaders think so you can know what tools to strategically use. We're going to teach you how to control your psycho-emotional state so no one else can. This is job one. Whether we're inoculating ourselves against predatory psychology or we want to win the next job interview. To the degree that you are in control of your emotional state, to the degree that you can go into or out of any psycho-emotional state at will, is the degree that you're either vulnerable or invulnerable. It's the degree that you're charismatic and assertive and authoritative or a weenie. If a person can poke holes in your emotional armor and get you to respond out of negative emotion, they can push your buttons and they can manipulate you. I want to show you how to close off those walls not close yourself off from the world, but seal those holes in your armor so that you're actually strong, so that people can hurl things at you and it just flows off you like water off a duck's back. And you can automatically sense when they're trying to manipulate you. That's what state control is really about. It's the ability to enter or exit any psycho-emotional state at will, on demand, in any situation or circumstance. Why? Because a predator will not attack you. They will not seek to influence you when you're having your best day. They will wait until you're at your most physically, financially, emotionally, environmentally most vulnerable, and then they will launch. So you will almost certainly be taken by surprise by these people. How many of you have been taken by surprise by one of these people, right? They got you in an emotionally weak moment. So the question becomes not how do I stay emotionally strong all the time, although we all want that. A deeper question becomes how do I get my emotional strength back when some situation, circumstance, or person undermines it? And that's what state control is really about at this level of the game. It's not about just being in an amazingly powerful, empowered state all the time. It's about how do I get back to that when something takes it away? How fast can I recover and get back to optimal performing? So that by itself is worth the price of the entire program. And I will tell you that state control training in Planet David is the secret sauce. If you got nothing else from your time with us, get that. Okay. But we're not going to stop there. We're also going to teach you the most powerful rapport skills on the planet. We'll teach you rapport skills so powerful that even predators, a lot of predators will volunteer information they don't want to volunteer, right? So there's three levels of rapport skills that we teach. We have classic rapport, kinesthetic rapport, and then we call activity level or vibing level rapport, which is used specifically for attraction and dating contexts. So if you are looking to be more attractive to the opposite sex or in general, understanding that third level of vibing is actually really critical for you. We're going to teach you the most powerful, irresistible hypnotic language patterns on the planet, the ones that nobody can resist because they're such a fundamental part of the way people think that just hearing the pattern causes people to think in a predictable way, a manageable way, right? We're going to teach you how to manage the emotional states of other people so that they want to do the things you want them to do, right? Again, very, very powerful. We're going to teach you how to emotionally bond anyone's deepest desires to get them to do what you want them to do and have them thanking you for it. Okay. This is your foundation. This is your core. Okay. And we're going to include a full 240 plus page manual. I think it's 240 pages. That gives you even more advanced training on advanced persuasion skills, dirty, rotten tricks, authority tactics, affinity tactics, behavioral modeling, things of that nature. It's a really powerful core foundation course, right? It's a $2,497 value, but we're not done. We're also going to put in these special bonuses to make sure that you've got the tools that you need to win against the predators. Okay, first one is going to be our actual defense against the dark arts program. This program was rated the #1 NLP program in the world for 2 years, 2022 and 2023, I believe. Defense Against the Dark Arts was ranked the #1 NLP program in the world. We are going to teach you in this program how to read faces, how to catch lies, how to reframe people attempting to gaslight you, love bomb you. We're going to teach you how to actually role play the psychology of these different predators so you know exactly how they think, you know what it feels like to be them, and you can turn the tables on them in the shortest amount of time humanly possible. We're also going to teach you how to read micro expressions, how to use the red flag system, which we're going to give you an overview of today to profile them even further. We'll talk about Chase Hughes' 6-minute X-ray and how parts of his system apply to what we're doing here. We'll show you my version of profiling people. It's there's about 40% is review of the original Killer Influence program. The other 60% is brand new profiling material that nobody's doing. Okay, we're going to give this to you because, again, it's an expansion on the things we're doing here. It's going to take your ability to profile people to a whole new level. Okay. Uh, Renegade reframing. This is probably one of the most dangerous programs I've ever taught. Aside from NLP Ultra, this particular program is easily something you really need to master. And it's about conversational reframing. Now, when we talk about reframing, a lot of people come from an NLP background or an Ericksonian hypnosis background. They think they understand what reframing is, but what we're actually talking about in this course are 14 patterns that have the ability to literally, in any given situation or circumstance, completely disrupt a person's neural pathways and their thinking process and allow you to install or insert a completely different direction for their thoughts. It creates, on a neurological, linguistic level, it creates what is commonly referred to as a transderivational search. And when you deploy one of these patterns, the brain literally goes into idle mode for a split second. They become hypersuggestible, and you can literally give them a different suggestion or a different meaning to what they were talking about, and they will buy into it more often than they won't. If there was one way to stop people from gaslighting you, love bombing you, or in any way disrupting your own thinking patterns and turning the tables on them, this would be the course. Now, this becomes exponentially more powerful when you combine it with Defense Against the Dark Arts and the Killer Influence Home Study program that I just talked about. Everything is designed to synergistically amplify be amplified by what came before it. So literally with this program, you'll have 14 different methods at any given moment to overcome any objection, reverse any psychological assault, change any belief, or destroy any limiting belief that you might have in seconds. In fact, there's actually a way to use this to install not nice programs into people. I don't teach it to the general public. But you can, if you do this properly, you could literally take anyone's self-esteem and turn them into a suicidal wrecking ball, right? I know that's a big claim, and I'm not going to teach it to the general public, but the truth is the methodologies in this course, combined with the others, make you very, very dangerous, right? So if you're looking for the way to turn the tables, not just evade them or avoid them or stop them, but if you're looking for a way to actually fight back, this is a pretty good course to have in your arsenal. I'm not going to bullshit you. I'm not going to make a lot of friends. I'm not going to be very popular. with my peers by what I'm telling you with this, but you guys said that you're actually going to use this stuff, so I'm going to be very straight with you, right? The potential of what you can do with these programs is it's strong, right? And I'm under talking about what I'm delivering. So it's a $1,997 value. We're going to give it to you for free. We want you to have it. We want you to have Defense Against the Dark Arts. We want you to have Renegade Reframing. We also want you to have this one, Charisma and Conversion. Now, why am I talking about charisma and conversion and hypnotic presentation skills for presenters and public speakers? Let me ask you all a question. How many of you have ever been to a self-help seminar? Like a T. Harv Eker or a Tony Robbins or a Robert Allen or a Mark Victor Hansen or a Lisa Sasevich, or just if you've done it, go ahead. How many of you have rushed to the back of the room and bought something you never used and you thought you would? How many times have you rushed to click a button and bought something you didn't want? Well, guess what? There are predators on the stage too. What you don't realize many times is that many of these high-level trainers out there are using very, very advanced covert neurolinguistic, covert hypnotic, and behavioral methodologies to brainwash you into rushing to the back of the room. Now, again, the tools themselves are inherently neutral. There's a lot of people out there using these tools who deliver tremendous value to the people through these tools, but they won't tell you they're using those tools. And if you go through one of their trainers trainings where you get to be certified to teach their stuff, they won't teach you this part because that would make you competition. So there's a system behind the system. With charisma and conversion, I pull back the curtain on these secret techniques, on these methodologies. I give you the persuasion architecture. There's two forms of presentation that we teach you, the heart-centered presentation template and the pain-driven presentation template. We'll teach you about spatial anchoring. We'll teach you about ninja stories, confusion inductions. You'll literally, in this course, I literally deconstruct the transcripts of a very famous speaker and show you all the covert hypnotic processes that this person is using. Right? I had an assistant many years ago who every time I got to this part of the training, he'd have to leave the room. And the reason he had to leave the room was because he had been at the seminar of the person I was deconstructing. And he had, in fact, literally rushed to the back of the room and bought everything this guy was offering as a byproduct of this training. So he would have these really just burnt ass flashbacks, right? I'm not here to pass judgment on the techniques. If you have a business where you help people and you want them to get excited and you want to be able to deliver more value to them and you want them excited about you, these tools will do that for you. The only thing I ask is that you can actually deliver what you're offering. So I give this to you, I offer this to you in the context of learning about what's actually being done to you when you go to many of these trainings, especially the FNLP training, right? If it's on their resume anyway, they probably are doing some of this to you. They may not be doing it very well, depending on what you do, right? But also because I want you to have these tools so you can use them, so you can deliver value and you can elevate and change people's lives and you can make the difference that you were born to make in other people's lives. Remember, the tools don't care how they're used, but I do. I do. Okay. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give this to you for free because, again, I want you safe and I want you to win, right? An educated public is a vulnerable public. Okay. But once again, if all you do is buy the course and don't use it, what's the point? It's just entertainment. But if you're true to your word, you said you're going to use it, then you know what to do, right? All right, so let's review what we got. So in the Killer Influence, Secrets of Human Influence home study program, you're going to get the 17-video, 7-stage universal persuasion protocol, the Killer Influence mind control manual, that whole Killer Influence package, which again, prior to Dark Arts was the #1 NLP training program in the world. stood the test of time. Dark Arts is the only thing that ever beat it, right? It's a $2,497 value. Plus, we're going to give you Dark Arts, right? $1,997 value. You're going to get the Renegade Reframing, $1,097 value. And of course, the Charisma and Conversion topic. Total value on this is $8,488. But I want to give you the best deal humanly possible, so we're not going to make you pay $8,488. How about if I cut it in half? Like even like 53.47. Still be a good deal, but I'm not going to do that either, right? For those 23.40, that's $100 less than just for Killer Influence. No, we're not going to do that. For those of you who are true to your word, who are ready to use this material, I'm going to give it all to you for one low investment of just $997. If you're ready to level up, and I mean level up, this is the course that'll do it. One installment at $997, or you can break that up into 3 easy installments of $397 each. All you got to do to get yours is go to nlppower.com/DA, Defense Against Dark Arts. DA. Go ahead and click that link right now. Grab your course. And as you grab your course, remember, everything that we're giving you is guaranteed. If by the end of day 59 of your post-webinar training, you decide this isn't working, you're having trouble, you can't get past the sticking points, pick up the phone, let Mia know, shoot me an email, we'll refund your money. If you're not 100% loving what you got, if you're not making more wins, if you're not protecting yourself and your family the way I said you could, if you're not, by the way, I will tell you up front, if you apply this material, I shouldn't say if, when you apply this material, you will find yourself saying no to more people than you ever have. The reason is because you will see them differently and you will avoid risks beyond a certain level. You'll also, by the way, if you apply the things we teach you in the first course, you'll also wind up attracting more people than you've ever had in your life. You'll have the ability to do both, right? So one of the things we're going to cover in part 3 of this particular training is the 3 magic questions protocol, which is something every one of you need to be using in conjunction with these skills. We teach it in Killer Influence, we teach it in Defense Against the Dark Arts, but I'm going to give you the public version here, right? So again, everything is 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Just click your link to grab your course and make sure you've got all the trainings that you need, right? nlppower.com/DA, right? And for those of you who grabbed that course, who've clicked that link already, you've already qualified for this. For those of you who've been on the fence, if you click your link right now, before I jump off the webinar, I'm going to include the following special bonuses, each of which is specifically designed to maximize and accelerate your skills with these trainings. Okay. The first one is going to be the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Practice Group. And it comes with a 15-year video archive. So let me explain that to you. I have been running the world's longest running paid practice group in the world. It's called the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. We started it in October of 2010. Its purpose has one purpose and one purpose only: to teach my students how to actually take the skills they're learning in the courses, in the seminars, and functionalize them out in the real world. Okay, everything in our live events is designed to help you embody these skills and just go out in the world and do it. But a lot of our clients have learned through video, and they don't have the opportunity to do the drill after drill after drill with all these different people. So we created the Mastermind Mentoring Program so people who bought our video programs could log in on the 3rd Saturday of every month, tell me what their sticking points are. We create a lesson plan for you right on the spot. And for the next 4.5 to 5 hours, we drill one drill after the other, after the other, after the other, until you can do the skills you came to learn backwards and forwards. You're going to be surrounded by people just like you who want to get better, who want support and feedback. And I'm going to be there the whole time, guiding you through one process after another. My job is to make sure that you can do these things out there. Not just watching the video and maybe doing it in a seminar room somewhere. I want you to embody these skills. I want you to go out into the world and pardon my French, I want you to make the world your bitch in a loving, peaceful, gentle way, right? I want you to use these skills to get everything you want in your life and keep yourself safe. Now, you'll get a 90-day trial. If you like it after 90 days, you love the people, you love what you're learning, you love the opportunities that you get, we'll show you how to extend your membership. If you got what you needed, you're good to go. We'll bid you good luck and we'll wait to see you at the next training. For those of you who are members of the Mastermind Mentoring Program in good standing, we have videotaped every single training session we've done over the last 15 years. We've archived those videos on the YouTube channel in the members area, in our private Facebook group, and some of it is on our NLP Power website. As a member of the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, you have full access to any of the content that is in the 15-year video archive. Stuff that's never seen the light of day on YouTube, never been featured in a product, taught only behind closed doors. It's member driven, so there's a lot of the same material taught over and over again because a lot of people have the same questions, but you'll see different spins on it, right? If you want to binge content that almost nobody has ever seen, and get access to materials that almost nobody ever gets access to, this is an extra free bonus. It's a $1,597 value. You will not get a certificate from the Mastermind Mentoring Program unless you really want one. What you will get is something much more valuable. The ability to use these skills anytime, anywhere, under any situation or circumstance to get what you want or to get away from the things you don't want. That's my promise. We're going to give this to you absolutely free. It's a $10,085 value. We're also going to include, because some of you are impatient like me, we're going to include the Stealth Instant Conversational Hypnosis Crash Course. This is a program that was designed to be learned and used fast. You literally watch 2 videos. You can be out hypnotizing people on the street in normal and everyday conversations in a couple of hours if you've done the drills and you watch the videos. But it also comes with workbooks. It comes with bonus videos. It comes with downloadable MP3s, course on instant and rapid inductions, 2 courses on conversational hypnosis, 1 course on lie detection, 1 on emotional triggers and hot buttons, and a whole lot more. Again, this was designed for you to get a fast start today. Like you literally watch 2 videos, maybe write down a few sentences, and you're out in the world applying your skills. Okay, it's $11,082 combined value. It's a $997 value. We're going to give it to you for free. So finally, for those of you who click this link right now before I jump off, we're going to give you a free VIP bonus ticket to our Killer Influence Secrets of Covert Hypnosis live certification bootcamp scheduled for August 18th through the 22nd, 2026. Here in San Diego. Now, there's also a Zoom option with this. So if you're across the planet, across the pond, in New Zealand or Australia or the UK or Ireland or Germany or Russia or whatever, and you can't get here physically, we would love you to be here physically. But this is going to give you free access to the full 5-day hypnotic persuasion certification bootcamp. And during this training, in addition to the regular Killer Influence material, I'm also going to include how to emanate authority and calm on demand, how to create charisma, how to redefine charisma into becoming unshakable and unreadable and in command of yourself, how to spot manipulators in seconds before they open their mouth, use behavior deviation, IQs, and speech patterns to profile anyone, anytime. In other words, I'm going to teach you a lot of the defense against the dark arts materials that we talked about in this webinar. To detect lies, framing, covert commands, turn conversations into blueprints for control, how to disarm gaslighters, narcissists, emotional parasites, learn how to counter patterns that neutralize your power, and actually put the ball in your court, how to ethically influence people so that you don't become one of the bad guys, right, as a byproduct of this training, right? And a whole lot more. This is going to be a very hybrid class. Because the program is really about protecting yourself, we're going to start with influence and we're going to go very, very deeply into the art and science of profiling and counter manipulation training. In other words, you detect manipulation, this is how you fix it. Okay, it's a $2,497 value. Total combined value on everything we've talked about so far is $13,579. So this is the package we've got for you guys. You're going to get the Secrets of Human Influence Killer Influence Home Study course valued at $2,497. You're going to get the Defense Against the Dark Arts Hypnotic Counter Manipulation Home Study course, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. You're going to get the Renegade Reframing, Objection Mastery and Conversational Belief Change Masterclass, $1,997 value. You're going to get Charisma and Conversion, how to protect and inoculate yourself against presentations from the stage, and how to do powerful, compelling, hypnotic stage presentations that make people salivate to do what you want them to do. It's a $1,997 value. We're going to give this to you for free. We're going to give you the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring trial membership where you can actually physically work on your skills every single day, every weekend, and plus binge watch all those videos we talked about. You're going to get the Stealth Instant Conversational Hypnosis Crash Course so you can get started today. $997 value. We're going to give that to you for free. And you're going to get that free live VIP ticket to the Secrets of Killer Influence, Secrets of Covert Hypnosis live certification boot camp here in San Diego, August 18th to the 22nd, 2026. Or you can attend via Zoom. You just got to let us know which version you want when you get your package so we can track you the right way. Now, interesting thing about our VIP tickets. Our VIP tickets are kind of cool in that if you don't want to come to Killer Influence, you can trade that VIP ticket in for another product or another seminar. As long as the price is equal or greater value, or equal or lesser value rather, we'll swap it out for you. You just got to let us know. But your default ticket will be for Killer Influence. If for some reason you want to come live and you can't make it, let Mia know. She'll move you to the guest list next time we do another training. We'll put you on that list. We'll let you know. If there's another training you'd like to go to, let us know. We'll move you to that list. All that matters is that you're in our database for having acquired this particular package, and we'll take care of the rest. You just got to let us know. Okay. So if the price goes up, you're protected. If we're sold out and you want to come at the last minute, we'll make a seat for you. If you want to go and at the last minute you can't go, no problem. We'll put you back in the database. You use that ticket when you're ready. You have it until you use it. If you want to gift that ticket to someone you believe would benefit from it, call us up, let us know. We'll authorize the ticket for them and you can gift it to them, right? We're very flexible that way. All that matters is that you click that link, get in the program so we can help you in the best way possible for all of us, right? Just click your links right now, nlppower.com/DADA or DADA, right? Come to DADA, right? And again, the fast action bonuses are good until I log off the webinar. So when I physically log off the live webinar, the fast action bonuses go away. The regular package is available until 11:59 p.m. tonight. I would highly, highly encourage you to go ahead and reach out to Mia as quickly as possible, or just go ahead and click the link and then let us know what specializations you need. What do I mean by that? A lot of people have been bebopping around Planet David for a while, and so they may have acquired some of the courses you see here on the list, and that's fine. If you want to take advantage of this program, but you see some things that you already have, no problem. Just click your link. As soon as the link goes through, pick up the phone or pick up or access your email, reach out to Mia at nlppower.com. Let her know you've got some duplicates and you'd like to substitute. As long as the program you want to substitute is of equal or lesser value, we'll go ahead and make that substitution for you so you can customize your package. Now, some of you got wise to this little perk that we give you, and you just started buying packages over and over again, trying to get new stuff, right? We know who you are. All right. If there's a legitimate overlap and one or two things is fine. But if you're a repeat offender, you know who you are. Don't click the links. Right. Let's be honest. Let's be ethical. We give you guys way more than we ever promise. And we bend over backwards to try and help you as much as we can. So go ahead and click your links. And we'll make this happen for you. Okay. I love you guys all. All right. So go ahead and click those links. I'm going to give you guys like 5 or 6 minutes, just general questions. I'll answer any general questions that you have. Right? And then we're going to go back to part 3 of the webinar, and we're going to talk about defense mechanisms that you might see people when you actually turn the tables on a narcissist. These are some of the behaviors that you might encounter. Also, we'll talk about 3 magic questions, and I'll do a Q&A, and I'll customize things as best I can for you. Okay, let me see here. So what's this saying? I don't think I was promoted correctly to this event. Is that better, Mia? Mia was contacting me on the back channel. So Lottie's asking, is it normal to get very maybe overprotective problem with love? Yes. Yes. Once, you ever hear the expression once bitten, twice shy? You will find many times that people who've been targeted by these kinds of predators in the past will become hypersensitive. They'll become hypersensitive to anybody exhibiting these behaviors. And that's a problem too, because remember, one of the things that if you looked at the list of vulnerabilities, do you notice how almost all of these are analogous to some form of trauma? Your traumas make you vulnerable. Your level of social isolation or need for validation is what makes you vulnerable. So, one of the most important things I can teach you, this has nothing to do with today's package, by the way. One of the most important things I can teach you in order to protect yourself, in order to take yourself off the menu, is to help you heal. The more we can heal our wounds, conscious or not, emotional or physical or not, the less vulnerable we become to the predations of people who are basically looking at us like with an X-ray and noticing exactly where we need to go, where they need to go to get us to do what they want us to do. Does that make sense? Right? Um, for those of you who actually want that kind of help, I do see clients. I would email me at david@nlppower.com. You can email Mia for that kind of work as well. She'll make sure I get the messages. I do see clients, so if is some healing work that you need done, I'm available for you guys. If I can, and again, if I'm not in your price range, right? I hate to bring that up. There are other people who I've trained who work at a slightly more competitive rate. But if you want to work with me directly, I'm available. So just give us a call at 858-282-4663 or give us a call or you shoot us an email, me at NLP Power or David at NLP Power, and we'll get you set up on a consult. So remember that there's two ways that we protect ourselves going forward. A, we heal, right? Sometimes we can heal on our own. Sometimes we need help. I'm here to help in that respect. Okay. The other way is through the tools, which is, again, the packages that we've talked about. Do you have the tools and the will to use them? Right. That's why I asked. And I sounded a little bit of a kind of dickish before saying, are you willing to use them? Right. Everybody is waiting for somebody else to save them. Especially if you're highly over socialized or neurotic on the neurotic spectrum. We're waiting for the government or law enforcement or some support group to come in and save us. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to save you but you. If you make yourself strong, if you make yourself resourced, if you give yourself the tools and develop the willingness to use them, the bad guys will avoid you. There's too many other easy targets out there. Plus, you become a protector of society. You become someone who has the ability, if it's in your nature to do so, to intercede on behalf of somebody else. Lottie says, hard to remember 100% one to, and she goes blank. Of course, most people do because they don't have the training. You got to have the training, which is why we created the mastermind program. We create the programs and the courses to give you the tools. We create the mastermind mentorship to give you the ability to practice. And we encourage you guys to get together and practice together as often as possible. That's how you own that's how you own these techniques. That's what matters. Okay? So Robert's asking, can there be an interactive effect between someone being medicated to manage ADHD with a suspected covert narcissistic tendency? Well, first of all, people who are on the ADHD spectrum tend to be a little bit more kinesthetic and hyperkinetic. So they tend to be a little bit more sensation seeking anyway. So it's easy to see how they might be considered a little bit on the spectrum. This is a pretty long question, so I gotta read this here. The person I'm thinking about appears to have learned to be quite distrustful of others, which is not always a bad thing, but is prone to accuse others of being deceptive. This person's mother was okay, you're dealing with trauma. I don't even have to finish reading it to know that you're dealing with a huge amount of probably narcissistically induced trauma. But even if it's not narcissistic, it's trauma. So this needs healing, and it needs an environmental change. Um, we talked about this, I think, at the last AMA. Um, the most powerful hypnotic operators in your environment are the people you associate with on a regular basis and the environments that you frequent, right? We need to be willing to change that. Now, some people, like a teenager or a child who doesn't have the resources to move out of that environment, we have to do other things, right? And we can, given the time and the energy and the resources. We can install ego strengthening exercises designed to shore up their personal boundaries and their conscious filters and things of that nature. And a lot of us need a healthy dose of hypnotic ego strengthening, especially if we're going to take on the bad guys, right? Because their job is to systematically pick away at our ego strength until we're just basically linguine in their hands or clay in their hands. We have to become stone. We have to become or a pine tree or something that is very strong, very stable, but also very flexible. The only way to do that is to work on ourselves. So the question was, I was just wondering more about the effect of being medicated for the ADHD. I don't know. We'd have to test it. We'd have to test it, but I can tell you right now, I don't care what ADHD meds they're on. We have processes that can put a dent in whatever they're dealing with. Right. I was, I'll be upfront with you. When I was being trained in holographic memory resolution, which was created by a man named Brent Baum, one of the things that Brent taught me was that holographic memory resolution doesn't work really, really well on people who are on like taking marijuana or benzodiazepines or things of that nature because they're memory retardants. So I promptly got a whole bunch of clients who were doing marijuana and taking benzos, and I had no problem. Um, when you're dealing with clients, you deal with whatever's in front of you. If you accept them as a client, that's what you do, as long as it's within your scope of practice. Um, when I was working with Bill Bankston and I was learning his energy healing method, he said he could heal anything. The system could heal anything but warts. So I worked on warts. So a lot of times the things that hold us back are belief systems that have been passed on to us from well-meaning mentors and guides and teachers and stuff like that. Um, so, but there's a lot of medications that I haven't had, I haven't dealt with clinically, but I have had people who have on ADHD meds and they have no problem with what we're doing, specifically because a lot of our methods are quite active. In classical hypnosis, this is what this is what a classically hypnotized person looks like, right? That's not what people look like in our chairs. They're moving stuff around. They're interacting with their nervous system. It's a very dynamic, very synergistic approach to transformation that creates very, very powerful change in a short amount of time possible. So we found that a lot of the attention or focus modifying effects of medicines don't actually slow down what we do. Just my experience so far. So I hope that answers your question. Right. Any other questions before I move on to defense mechanisms? All right, let's talk about that. Let me jump out of this. So we talked about thinking patterns, right? I want to talk about defense mechanisms, which I think is actually going to be a little bit more useful for you guys than prior. Okay. So this is from the book Character Disturbance by George K. Simons. And again, if you really want to understand these things from a clinician's side of things, I recommend his books, right? So unconscious processes, neurotic use, and again, we make two distinctions here. Let me see if I have my chart. So there's two basic cornerstones to this personality typing. You have active and passive and dependent and independent. So in this corner, we have people who are dependent on external sources of emotional gratification and stimulation. They actively pursue involvement through seductive, dramatic, attention-seeking behaviors. This begets a histrionic style. Going back to the question on borderline personality, this is what we're looking at. An extreme example of this. This is up here at this corner. At the opposite end of the spectrum, you have passive independent. This is a person whose source of emotional gratification and stimulation is internal. They avoid genuine emotional attachments. They're often too satisfied with themselves as a source of needs to be really good at others. They beget an egotistical style. This is the person who's so sure of what they know, they don't care what anybody else says, and they will screw up an entire project because they refuse to go along to get along, right? These people are often the know-it-alls or the Mr. Think, the super brains. They often set themselves up in situations where it's their expertise that keeps them from getting fired because behaviorally they're assholes most of the time, right? These people are very, very, if we were using NLP meta programs, we would say that they are internally driven. They have an internal locus of control. The active independent people, their source of emotional gratification and stimulation is also internal, but they have an active pursuit of self-reliance and control through power tactics. These are people who are going to do things to get their way in the world. They're going to learn new things. They're going to make goals, set them and go after them. They're going to engage the help of others, but they're also going to be primarily self-driven. So these people can be either assertive if we like them, or aggressive if they tend to tread on our boundaries. Then you have what we call dependent passive, right? And this depends on their external source of emotional. They're depending out on validation from other people to get their emotional needs met. They usually avoid asserting themselves or caring for themselves emotionally. They're often quite submissive. So what you're seeing here on this side of the screen are people who are much higher on the neurotic. Hold on a second. Neurotic spectrum. And people who are higher on the neuroticism spectrum are more highly they're often very highly socialized. Sometimes you could say they're over socialized, where a character disturbed person doesn't care. These people care too much. And so this group often victimizes this group. Okay. So I wanted to put that out there just to fill in some of the gaps I may have to cover. So let's talk about defense mechanisms really quickly. And the reason I brought that up was because Simon here talks about neuroticism, and I wanted you to understand what that meant. So these tactics are conscious or become automatic, offensive in nature. They serve to justify irresponsible conduct, resist internalizing pro-social value standards and controls, to manipulate and control other people, to manage impressions, and create a favorable one-up position. So let's talk about this for a minute. When you aren't resisting or putting up a fight or saying no to a predator, they're usually quite agreeable. They're good. They're easy to get along with. There's no conflict. The problem happens when you say no. The problem begins when you voice a value or an emotional need or an argument to what they want. That's when the problems start. And that's when you will see the behaviors that we're going to talk about. Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. When you start seeing these behaviors, there's a tendency for all of you to say, oh my God, I'm a narcissist. Oh my God, I'm a sociopath. Oh my God, I've got character disturbance. No. These are natural normal human defense mechanisms. The difference becomes how often does it arise and the intensity and extremity of it. Remember, everything that you see in grandiose narcissists, covert narcissists, sociopaths, any form of persuasion predator, and there's many more than the character types I've mentioned. What you're seeing is an extreme of normal middle of the road human behavior and coping mechanisms. They're extremes. So it is very natural and often quite common for you to see yourself in some of these behaviors, right? What you need to look at is the frequency and intensity of these behaviors and the context in which they arise. That's going to give you the biggest set of red flags. Okay. Any questions on that before I jump into some of these? Okay. Let's go back to sharing. Oh, before we get into that, if you haven't clicked your link yet, remember we got the Secrets of Human Influence home study course. It includes Killer Influence, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Renegade Reframing, Charisma and Conversion, NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, Stealth Instant Conversation Hypnosis Crash Course, Killer Influence VIP Super Ticket for the live training August 18th through the 22nd. Go ahead and click your links now to make sure that you've got your spot reserved. It's to get the entire package for one low installment of $997, or you can break that up into 3 installments of $397 each. Just click the link nlppower.com/dada, D-A-D-A. All right, and let's go ahead and get back to our regularly scheduled program. All right. So the first one, and you're going to run into this one a lot. This is rationalization. In other words, they're going to make excuses. They're going to try to justify wrong behavior with a litany of reasons why it was okay or unavoidable. This is not unconscious alleviation of guilt, but a deliberate manipulation to legitimize bad acts and resist change. Well, she had it coming. She was wearing a short skirt, right? That's a rationalization, right? Now, a lot of times what you'll see with rationalizations is they'll often overlap with other types of defense mechanisms, like the next one, externalizing the blame or scapegoating, right? When someone's externalizing the blame or scapegoating, right, they're attributing their misbehavior to someone or something else. They made me do it. Well, if they hadn't put the bathroom out of order, I wouldn't have had to use the women's room, right? Shifts focus away from self and casts himself as the victim. It defies responsibility and manipulates other people's perceptions. Now, remember, these are natural human behaviors, but you have to look at the context, the frequency, and the intensity of those behaviors. Next one you'll often see is denial, right? Refusing to admit wrongdoing or feigning ignorance of harm caused. This is tactical lying to maintain innocence, avoid scrutiny, manipulate others into doubting themselves, but it's not a true unconscious defense. These people know exactly what they're doing, right? If you're dealing with someone who's like a pathological liar, people have a pathological need to falsify. They don't realize they're doing it half the time. They're lying to themselves as much as they're lying to everybody else. This is different. This is conscious, intentional falsification, right? Another one you're going to see a lot is minimizing. Minimizing is kind of the one that a lot of people miss. What they try to do is they try to trivialize the seriousness of the harmful actions. It wasn't that bad. Admitting I only did this, it contrasts with neurotics' tendency to catastrophize. People who are high on the neuroticism spectrum, they make mountains out of molehills. People who are minimizing make molehills out of mountains, right? I'll give you a real quick story. I had a colleague who I always knew was a little bit on the spectrum of not nice. And he was running one of the largest conferences in our profession. And he was caught embezzling a huge amount of money from the convention over the course of several years. And when he was confronted with it, he basically said, well, I likened it to taking the change out of a cup holder. That that's minimization at its maximum, right? People will take the biggest, nastiest behavior or offense, and they'll find the way to make it small and seem like no big deal, right? So be very, very aware of this. Now, what's interesting is that many times a lot of these same tactics are used in an interview and interrogation to get criminals to confess to doing something wrong, right? Because if you minimize the infraction that they're being charged with, they start to paint you as an ally. Like if you're buying into their story, if you're buying into their rationalization, you actually might let them off if you're the policeman. Well, that's not how it works, but that's what's going on psychodynamically in an interview or an interrogation, right? Then we have lying. Hold on a second. Let me just get my. And this includes distortion by omission, vagueness, or ambiguity. So these are direct falsehoods, partial truths, or selective facts to or selecting facts to misrepresent reality and maintain an advantage, often habitual, even when unnecessary. So this is where, again, you'll see more of a pathological lying. Hold on a second. A pathological liar kind of a situation. This is somebody who lies because it's a day ending in Y, as opposed to a certain very specific type of lie. This is denial, right? This person is going to make shit up. Okay. Bullying. This is something you'll often see when people are caught in a lie. They'll often start to get very angry. They'll start to puff up. They'll start to, they'll try to intimidate you into dropping the subject. So they'll give you overt threats, they'll browbeat you, they'll display rage or some kind of intimidation behaviors designed to get you to drop the subject or force you to comply. The next one is covert intimidation. This is more like someone who's going to try to blackmail you, right? They'll give you subtle, veiled threats, looks or implications of consequence for non-compliance. And then the next one is evasion. They'll dodge the issue. They'll often deflect. So they might answer a question with a question. They'll say something like, so is there any reason why my friend Bernice said your car might be parked out front of Susan's condo 2 days ago? Well, why would Susan ask that? Right? Or what do you want for dinner? I'm hungry. Right? Rather than just saying it wasn't me or denying me, they're going to find some way to not answer the question. Right? And that goes right into diversion and deflection. Right? These are very similar. Dodging issues, sidestepping questions, or avoiding direct answers to keep others in the dark. You'll also, in the context of evasion, I'll give you a little fun factoid here. Oh, was I not sharing my screen? I had a colleague from the pickup and seduction world, um, who had this thing called there's this thing we have called a pattern interrupt. And whenever he was be talking to a girl and she started, oops, sorry about that. That is so cool. Anyway, anytime he was talking to a girl and the conversation started to go in a bad direction, he'd go, oh man, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And he would rush off to the bathroom and he would interrupt that pattern and then he would come back and start again. That's kind of what an evasion is like, in that they just run away, either verbally or behaviorally. Now, evasion can also be seen non-verbally as well. You'll often see forms of evasion in terms of backward leans, turns, or blocking your ventral line. These are behavioral evasions, right? They're not necessarily going to be linguistic in nature. Pardon me. So these can also, if they're doing any of these things while you're talking to them, those are also forms of evasion as well. Giving assent, false agreement. This happens when a person pretends to agree or concede in order to get you to go away. They'll placate others while harboring defiance with no real intent. I call this the Robert Downey Jr. Right? Some of you know this, some of you don't. Many years ago, Robert Downey Jr. was known in Hollywood for his substance abuse issues. And I heard this story about him once that people would come up to him and they would give him these long drawn out lectures on why he shouldn't do drugs, how he needs to go to rehab. He would smile, agree with them, and just go do his drugs anyway. Right? This is exactly the kind of thing you want to watch out for. There are people who will agree with you just to get you to go away. There will also be people who want to get you to agree with them, hoping they'll go away, and then they're going to trap you with that agreement later on. So this is something that we, again, from a behavioral sciences perspective, from an ego strengthening perspective, we need to shore up our values. We need to shore up our ego strength. We need to shore up our willingness to confront and our willingness to hold and protect our boundaries. Because if we agree with somebody just to escape the situation, that's how they're going to get you. Okay. Going along to getting along with these kinds of people is a recipe for disaster. Okay. So giving false assent is never a good idea. Next one is posturing. Now, what's interesting about posturing is that many times when people are posturing, they're actually only a minute or two away from completely collapsing and losing their shit. And in Chase's world, we talk about the pendulum swing between posturing, composure, and collapse. And that many times someone who's on the verge of collapse will go into an extreme level of posing or posturing. And if you push them just a little bit, they'll collapse. So posturing is a challenge to the legitimacy of other people's concerns or outrage, to throw them into a defensive mode and to maintain superiority. So a lot of these mechanisms are designed to intimidate you. They're designed to get you physically or metaphorically, psychologically on your heels, to where you have to protect yourself against them, right? Hold on a second, I gotta get that. There we go. Okay. So a lot of these are all forms of aggression. In case you haven't realized it yet, none of this is passive. These are all very aggressive, very intentional, very directed forms of social aggression, right? So again, we're coming up to, I probably got time for one or two more, then I'll take some questions and then we're going to go ahead and call it a day. The next one, also a form of aggression, but again, this is kind of like the wolf in sheep's clothing kind of a thing, playing the victim. They portray themselves as the wronged or the suffering to elicit sympathy and justify behavior. I see this a lot in covert narcissists, right? They'll often exaggerate or amplify the discomfort that they're going through to elicit sympathy and therefore considerations or what's the word I'm looking for? Perks, for lack of a better word, from another person. And then, of course, feigning ignorance or confusion. This is the classic playing dumb. They're going to act unaware or clueless about their actions or motivations to disarm people. We tend to give people who may not know better the benefit of the doubt. And this is, again, one of the problems that we as a population who are training in this material are going to have to deal with. And it's why I like George Simon's work. And I appreciate George Simon's work so much. The people who are going to perpetrate these behaviors on you are counting on you to be nice. They're counting on you to be compassionate. They're counting on you to see them as wounded or damaged or one down on the totem pole. They got to be acting that way from trauma, otherwise they wouldn't be acting. They don't care. They don't care. This is again, I take a hard line with this kind of material, because the people who are behaving this way don't care whether they got that way because they were traumatized or they got that way because they came out of the womb that way. It doesn't matter. They don't care. And they're counting on you to care. Because the moment you care and that the C word comes out and you start being merciful and just and fair, that's where they're going to get you. You have to assume this is a criminal or someone who's potentially a criminal, and they're going to take whatever they can from you without compassion or mercy. I know this message is not going to fly well with a lot of people out there. I've devoted my life to teaching the art and science of self-defense. I've been a self-defense instructor since I was 18 years old. The one thing that's necessary for evil to triumph is for you to give them an opportunity. These kinds of people, they associate kindness and compassion and mercy and justice with weakness, with stupidity. And if you become weak or stupid in their world, they're allowed to prey on you. They only recognize strength, and they're relentless. They will keep pecking at you until you significantly push back and they look for an easier target, or they get through your defenses and you do what they want. Right? It's not the nicest message you're going to hear from Planet David, but it is the truth. And it's the one that's allowed me to help a lot of people. These people are not going to change voluntarily. They're not going to change voluntarily. You can't change them. Do you know why you can't change them? Because they don't think there's anything wrong with them. They think everything's wrong with you. In their world, you're the weak one. In their world, you're the stupid one. Okay? And empaths especially are going to be extremely vulnerable to this kind of manipulations, and they need to do something about it. I say be compassionate and merciful and just with people with whom it is safe to be merciful and compassionate and just. By their works, you will know them. Okay? And to quote Forrest Gump, that's about all I have to say about that. All right. Last call for those of you who are on the fence for Defense Against the Dark Arts. Be sure to click your links right now. You're going to get the Killer Influence, Secrets of Covert Hypnosis home study course, the Defense Against the Dark Arts home study course, $1,997 value. You're going to get that absolutely free. You're going to get Renegade Reframing, $1,997 value, absolutely free. Charisma and Conversion, $1,997 value, absolutely free. You got the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program, the Stealth Instant Conversational Hypnosis Crash Course, and the Killer Influence Secrets of Covert Hypnosis VIP Super Ticket, valued at $2,497, scheduled for August 18th to the 22nd, live here in San Diego or online via Zoom. Total package value is $13,579. You can get yours for one low installment of just $997, or you can break that up into 3 easy payments of just $397 each. All you got to do is click your link on your screen right now. That's www.nlppower.com/DADA. That's nlppower.com/DADA. Click your links right now before the fast action bonuses go away. Remember, the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring, the Stealth Instant Conversation Hypnosis Crash Course, and the VIP Super Ticket to the 5-day live event boot camp. When I log off, they go with me. So click your link and we'll see you on the other side. If you have some things you'd like to substitute, by all means, reach out to Mia at nlppower.com. and we'll go ahead and get those substitutions ready for you. If you need help, if you've got stuff that, traumas and things holding you back or health issues that concern you, and you need one-on-one attention, we offer all prospective clients a free 30-minute consultation to determine if your case is a fit for our methods. After you pass our screening, we'll discuss strategies and tactics for helping you get your situation resolved in the shortest amount of time possible. If we can help you, we'll tell you. If we can't help you, we'll tell you that too, and we'll point you in the direction of where we think you can go to get the help you really, really need. Okay? And on that note, my friends, in the words of the immortal Cal Burnett, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long.